Hello, my friend. On today's episode, I'm speaking with Mark Fisher, and today we're going to peel back the curtain and explain to you what our Unicorn Society group is all about. It's a business mentorship for gym owners, and we're going to tell you all about what's actually included. We're in the middle of an enrollment period now, so if you enroll before June 11th, you get an early bird rate, which we'll explain to you. We're also going to share three kind of underrated, kind of surprising benefits people get from joining the Unicorn Society. So if you want to learn more about the group and the work we do with gym owners every day, just like you, then keep on listening. This podcast episode is for you. Hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business for Unicorns podcast. And today I'm here with Mr. Fisher. Mr. Fisher, hello, sir.
Hello there.
Welcome to the podcast. What a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. I've heard it's great here. It's great to be here. Finally.
Finally be invited.
Finally.
Well, today, my friends, as you probably heard in my intro, we have a very special episode of the podcast because what we're doing today is we're going to peel back the curtain and tell you all about Unicorn Society. We mention Unicorn Society on this podcast pretty much every damn episode, and only twice a year do we really open enrollment to let new people in. So we thought we'd dedicate this whole podcast to telling you how you can get on the action and peel back the curtain and explain to you really what's involved with being in the group, who it's right for. And we even want to share maybe a few kind of surprising benefits people get from being a part of Unicorn Society. So let's dive in. Fisher, do you want to just say a little bit about like, what's the timeline? If you're listening to this podcast, when it gets released, we're in our early bird period, right? You want to say what that means?
Yeah, so basically, if you sign up in the early bird period, it essentially means you lock in our early bird pricing. So that the time of this recording for this particular enrollment period, there's actually $150 delta between the full price and the early bird. So what that means is if you're signing up and you stick around for a year or, let's say a year, maybe you stick around for 3. But if you sign up for a year, that's going to save you $1,800 by applying during this particular window. So it's not an unlimited window, but if you sign up by, I believe it's June 11th. Is that right, Keeler?
You got it. Sunday, June 11th.
By Sunday, June 11th. And it's important to note that you only have to apply by June 11th. The nature of the Unicorn Society is we do have conversations when people apply. So this is not one of those like apply, quote unquote, when everybody gets in. We actually want to talk to you because it's not going to be the right fit, which is going to be bad for both of us if it's not the right fit. So we will have those chats with you, but all you need to do is apply by June 11th. Though in some cases, the mid-year one particularly, we tend to get a little bit backed up for some reason that tends to have like a more people applying for mid-year. So understand your actual call might not happen by the 11th, but apply by the 11th, save the money. Do it. If you're going to do it, save the money.
Save the money. And as Fisher said, applying for it does not mean you're committing to anything. In fact, what we wind up doing a lot of times in these conversations is trying to talk people out of joining if we don't think they're the right fit. We will let you know. So by applying, it just means you're committing to a conversation with us specifically to see if you're a good fit. And you'll get a chance to ask lots of questions. We'll ask you lots of questions about your business. And we want this to be a win-win. We want this to be a match. So just know on this call, it really is really a true strategy session, coaching conversation to see if we can be helpful to you. So don't be shy. You can go to businessunicorns.com, click on Unicorn Society, and apply. And if you're listening to this after enrollment, there's probably a button there that says join the waitlist to know about next enrollment. So if you're listening to this podcast long after the release, after June 11th, or after the enrollment's over, you can probably just join our waitlist and we'll still reach out to you to have a conversation. Well, let's just talk about the next part, Fisher, which is, who is this right for? So of our listeners, who are the people that should really be thinking, this is a group that I could specifically benefit from? So, where are they in their owning of their business? Who is it?
Yep. So, at a high level, we think this is going to be a good fit if you are the owner and operator of a training gym for 1 or more years. We do help people sometimes that have not opened up a business yet, or the business is very young, but we're really looking for people that have been around a little bit, because in practice, a lot of the things we have to offer are going to be more valuable and meaningful to you after the plane is already in the air. So that's not to say that you can't reach out if you're not there yet. It just means the Unicorn Society might not be the right fit. And part of it is because, quite frankly, the Unicorn Society is not cheap. So if you're not making a okay amount of revenue to begin with, there's probably more economic ways of getting the help that you need, which we can also talk about if we decide the unicorn side is not the right fit. I think the other criteria that we ask people in advance is it's going to be best if you have a dedicated space. You don't have to own it, but you generally want a leased space. So for instance, if you are working out of a park, or maybe you're paying rent at someone else's gyms, again, it's not a hard no, but usually that's not going to be ideal fit. We're usually looking for people to work full-time in the business. So if you run the business super part-time, this will not be the right one for you, because you're going to need to have bandwidth and, again, time to work on the business to get the value out of what we're offering. You'll want at least one employee, again, for the same reason. If you're on the floor 40 hours a week, it's not going to leave you much time to do much else besides be on the floor. So there might be other paths that are a little more economical, which, again, we can talk about with, but it's probably not the unicorn society. And then finally, we're looking for around 30 or more clients, right? And again, all of that is doing is just to sort of suggest that there is some proof of concept. And if you don't have 30 clients, I'll just say once again, there's nothing wrong with you. You're amazing. We want to help you. But the unicorn side is probably going to be too big of a commitment and too big of an investment. And there are other resources we have that are frankly more economical that can help you get to that threshold.
Yeah, well said, my friend. Yeah, I'll add one more criteria that I think people should think about, which I know we talk about a lot, so you'll agree with this one, is this kind of unofficial criteria that I think you should consider if you are considering Unicorn Society is that you are ready for change. Right.
Right.
This is not a group you should sign up for if you want to keep doing exactly what you've been doing. If you're not interested in really taking a long, hard look in the mirror, if you're not interested in really changing up how you do things, changing the systems and processes in your business, if you're not interested in getting a little uncomfortable, then this is not the group for you, right? We really can't help you if you're not ready to make change. That's a hard thing to know about yourself, which is why we have this interview conversation where some of the questions we ask you are about how ready are you to make real change in your business. And here's the thing: is we're not asking you to change everything overnight. But we are saying that if what you did to get from A to B is not the same thing that you're going to need to do to get from B to C, you have to be willing to try some new shit. And so I think that last criteria is just, do you really honestly think you're ready for change, to challenge yourself, invest in you and yourself and your business in a new way? If so, we can really help facilitate that. So I think that's another great consideration.
I think that's very interesting positioning, because it actually sounds very much like my personal pet peeve, which is like action takers only, leave your bullshit at the door. But in practice is actually coming out of your work and sort of change management psychology and someone getting a doctorate in this. So it's
Yeah.
funny, you kind of get to the same place, but it's from a very different starting place that you get there.
Yeah, 100%. It's like, we're not pushing you to do anything you don't want to do. But if you
Yeah.
only want to do what you've already done, we're not going to be able to help much. So you got to be willing to try some new shit. So Fisher, do you want to just talk about the nuts and bolts of like, what are some of like the features and benefits of this group? For
Yeah.
there's probably some listeners who've been in groups like this before, or so people who've never been in groups. So like, give them the lay of the land.
Yep. So you get a lot of things. I mean, I think one of the core things you get is you get up to 90 minutes per month with one-on-one coaching with any of the Business for Unicorns coaches, which is Keeler, myself, Pete Dupuis, Ben Pickard, and actually Amanda Wheeler, who a lot of you might know was the fitness director for a long time at Mark Fisher Fitness. And this is awesome because you get actual one-on-one access to us. So with no shade and all the love, this is not one of the ones where you get, like a monthly Zoom call. I think that's amazing. And actually you'll get that too, but you get actual one-on-one time to get brutally clear on, okay, what is the most pressing issues in the business right now? What are the exact steps you need to change it? And then let's hold you accountable to make sure you take action on the most important thing to do next, right? Because a lot of the game here is figuring out there's any number of things you can do in a given moment. And we want to help you get clear on what's the most important thing, the highest and best use of your time to move the ball forward. I think
Mhm.
in addition to the one-on-one calls, do you have anything you want to add there, Keeler?
No, I think that's spot on. I think you and I have talked before on this podcast how much we've benefited from having business coaches in our lives
Yeah.
and life coaches and all kinds of coaches. And to have that sounding board, that someone outside your organization,
Yeah.
it's just so priceless. And many of our clients, many of our Unicorn Society members don't even use all 90 minutes every month. It's a very generous amount of time. Like I don't know of many other coaching groups who
Yeah,
give
no, it's true.
that much access to folks. So we've been told many times that it's a real selling point for our members. So yeah, keep
Yes.
on going. Yeah.
Um, and I would note briefly, and we'll come back to this, I think, in a moment, because we also want to share what our perception are some of the most underappreciated benefits of this. But you can also send your team to use the one-on-one coaching. They can either attend with you or go on their own. So let's put a pin in that because we'll come back to that in a moment.
Yeah.
But in addition to the one-on-one call, there's also members-only 2-day quarterly retreats that we have 4 times per year with guest speakers. 3 of them are in super fun locations, one of which is on Zoom, which is practical, but admittedly not the most fun.
Yeah.
And those quarterly retreats consist of 1 day of content focusing on one specific business function. So, for instance, in Vegas, it was all about marketing. We have one coming up just north of New York City. It's going to be all about sales. And then the second day, we do a quarterly planning that will facilitate you with for you. And if you bring them with your team, so you get very clear on a high level on the macro, if the one-on-one calls are about what's going on right now and what's the one thing I need to do next, the quarterly planning is really about considering what are all the things going on in the business, how do I organize all these things I could be doing, and really identify what are the most important projects that are going to move the business in the direction I want. Because this, I think, is one of the key roles we have as an owner of a business, and not only will lead to better business outcomes, but I think the most common feedback we hear, and certainly my own experience, is it help you feel ease. You feel ease because it
Mm-hmm.
brings order out of the chaos, and that you're finally clear on, okay, there's all these things I could do, but I really thought about this in a really thoughtful, intentional way. And this is the main thing that all of my energy and my team's energy is going to make sure in the next 3 months, on pain of death, we're going to get done to move the business forward.
Yeah, I think it's huge. I mean, there's we talked to so many gym owners, excuse me. Sorry, I had to cough. We talked to so many gym owners who, who are don't feel at ease with their business. They feel pulled in a million directions. They're wearing a million hats. And the fact that we lovingly force you once a quarter to sit down, take stock of everything going on, and get clear about what are you going to focus on for the next 3 months, right? It's not sexy for a lot of people, but it is essential, and it gives you that kind of exhale, that kind of peace of mind that you get. Well, I'll speak for myself, that I get after I like clean out my closet. After I reorganize that drawer in my in my closet, right? It's like there's nothing like that feeling of like a fresh empty desk, right? Like once a quarter, we're just kind of lovingly forcing you to sit down, take stock, and get clear on your priorities. And, I think that's worth its weight in gold. And we hear from people who leave our retreats, oh my gosh, I just feel so much better about the months coming.
Yes.
Like I feel so much clearer about how to spend my time that like I just wish it was a gift we could give to everyone.
Yeah. It's also, I think, a badly needed opportunity for a lot of individuals to have an excuse to just get out of the day-to-day of the business, get into a different
Yeah.
space. And again, I'll pin another thing we'll come back to that I think is not always appreciated at first is connecting with like-minded individuals that share your values, that have similar kinds of business that you can brainstorm and strategize with.
Yeah, great. So we got 90 minutes a month of one-on-one coaching. We got 2-day quarterly retreats throughout the year. What are the other kind of bells and whistles that you get being part of this group?
But that's not all, Bob. So yeah,
But
I
wait,
think
there's
those are,
more.
yeah. So those are definitely, I think, the biggest pieces. But here's some other things that you get as part of this, right? So there's a bi-weekly group strategy call that you get. So you get put into a smaller cohort, and every other week you have an opportunity to get together, and Keeler 98% of the time facilitates them. And you will work together. Sometimes there's content prepared. Sometimes there is an opportunity to share challenges that you want to crowdsource, sometimes opportunities to share wins and gives where you can share strategies that have been working particularly well for your business. So just like one more opportunity to plug in to this broader community and help identify new strategies to get better results. I'll say briefly, there's also access to the Unicorn University, which is an access to our ever-growing compendium of courses in our library of tools and templates. And brand new, more and more playbooks. And I'll put a pin in that. We'll come back in a moment, as that's a relatively new offering we have. I've mentioned this before, but again, your staff has access to all of these, right? So again, if your staff wants
Mhm.
to come to the retreat, if they want to attend the coaching calls, if they want to take the courses, for instance, let's say you have a team member that's struggling with time management. Well, you can assign them and make sure they are taking Time Ninja, which is the course that I created about time management. I think in closing, there's also the private Facebook group, which is another place to get on demand thing if you want to crowdsource. Just in the past few days, you can jump in and be like, okay, who has a great referral strategy? What have you all done for big referral contests, or who has recommendations for a bookkeeper, or dot 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 dot. And then you also get free access to the Business for Unicorns live courses, which are usually $8.99 if you're not in Business for Unicorns. You get highly discounted rates to anything we do. So, for instance, I'm doing a mentorship day in a couple of weeks, and members get access to a deeply, deeply discounted rate if they want to come and spend the full day with me in New York City. And then the newest thing we've rolled out recently is, in addition to the one-on-one coaching, in addition to the group cohorts, the group coaching calls, we now have office hours for our coaches. So, for instance, some of us don't have as much of the one-on-one availability. We want to make sure, for instance, if you want to spend time with me, I would love that. And I'll see you at 4 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesdays. Same thing with Pete Dupuis, right? So any given day, if you have something last minute you really need to reach out to, and it's not something you want to voice text, you want to actually have a real-time conversation, even if you can't get into a one-on-one call with virtually no notice, you have an office hour literally that day you can go to. You can go to right then and there and get help and support from members of the Business for Unicorns coaching team.
Yeah, I think it's so huge. The fact that every week there are 4 hours of time that doesn't count towards your 90 minutes of coaching that you get to
Yep.
use with all of us coaches. And as Fisher mentioned, not only do you get to use it, but you can invite your team. You can bring your whole team, right, to come and chat with us for an hour every single week, right? And that's just included. Like, I'm pretty positive no one else is offering the kind of access to coaching that we are in this group. I can say that with pretty strong confidence that, like, no one else is giving you this kind of FaceTime with a coach to help be an accountability buddy and thought partner. And so I think that really, I'm really proud of that. I think we've been really proud of that as a way that we distinguish ourselves from other groups. Well, let's dive in. The last thing I wanted to share here was just a few kind of maybe under the radar, maybe surprising things that people get out of Unicorn Society that you wouldn't expect. And so, yeah, you want to kick us off with the first one there, Fisher?
Yeah, so I think we've alluded to each of these generally as we sort of move that list, but the one I
Yeah,
really want to highlight is the ability to be us to train your team.
yeah,
Right. And that's included in the price. So, for instance, if you don't want to do the one on one call, or you can't do the group calls, or you can't attend the retreat, or maybe want to have one of your team members go through the courses, I think this is an amazing resource, in part because, one, with all humility, I think our team is quite accomplished at teaching and training people. So we might have a skill set that you don't yet have. And two, you're never a prophet in your own land. So sometimes, it might land a little differently coming from business industry luminary Pete Dupuis than when you say the same words to your team, right? Just going to land a little bit differently. And I think if you really want freedom, if you really want the ability to have a little more independence from your business, if you want the ability to have a business that makes money and maybe even grows while you're not there, if you want to set up your business in such a way that you're not always the person that it all comes to, what you really need to develop other people on your team. And part of how you'll do that is developing your own leadership skills, but part of that is continuing to make sure that your team is more effective at their jobs. So this seems to me like a very, very important benefit of working with the Unicorn Society is our commitment, our investment in making sure your team is functioning at a very high level.
yeah, yeah, 100%. I think that's huge. I think it's huge, and we've seen so far, so many of our Unicorn Society members really take advantage of that. Right? There's some Unicorn Society members who send their number two to our coaching call more than they're on it because they
Right.
want that person to develop and take their job, right? They want that person to run the business on their behalf. There's been plenty of people who use their coaching for to bring their whole team on a Zoom, and we'll spend an hour together, actually me delivering a workshop to them, to their whole
Yep.
team all at once. So to be able to use us as continuing education, I think really expands the value you get from a group like this. Yeah, the other surprising thing, which we illuminated, we we illuminated? No,
alluded
we
to.
alluded to, thanks, that we alluded to earlier was really the fact that we're pretty picky about who we let into Unicorn Society, which means when you come to the retreats, you get to spend quality time, not just with us, but with other gym owners who you're going to have a lot in common with, who you really are going to want to hang out with. And we structure our retreats to really prioritize not just speakers and workshops, but chill time, hang time, community time, connection time. And we've heard time and time again that people get so much value out of those conversations that happen at the bar afterwards, or at the rooftop lounge, or at the, hopefully this one we're going to in upstate New York, around the fire pit. That you're going to get so much insight by having casual conversations with your fellow Unicorn Society members who are all gym owners who know what it's like, more or less, to be in your shoes and to have your job. That's a hard thing to find. I know we've talked before on this podcast about when, as an entrepreneur, it's hard to talk to your spouse or your friends or your family if all they've ever known is working for someone else. Working for yourself and running your own business is a different thing. So the kind of connection you can get at the retreats with fellow Unicorn Society members, I think, is really underappreciated, and it gives a ton of value and purpose, kind of meaning to this group that I wish I wish everyone could experience. Yeah. What else? Any other underappreciated or under the radar benefits you want to highlight, Fisher?
Well, I think one, I don't know this exactly under the radar, but we've certainly intentionally started to supplement our existing library of templates and, of course, access to all of Mark Fisher Fitness's standard operating procedures, which is, I think, very valuable in and of itself. And we have come to see, which was not a surprise, but Mark Fisher Fitness is a little bit of a beast. So I don't know that everything that Mark Fisher Fitness does, in fact, I know it's not true that you just want to plug and play what we do. I think it might be
Yeah.
interesting to model pieces of it, but we've really moved away from that more towards an ever growing library of very specific, let's say, like 3 to 12 step playbooks of, if you need help with this, do this. So for instance, if you've been struggling with getting your email marketing good to go, we now have a playbook for that. And it's not only a playbook, it's also, here's how you get started and prep with everything, including templates for how you warm up a cold email list, to links to specific email service providers, to specific SOPs for how to use ChatGPT to augment your content creation. So more and more and more, we're moving towards giving you very specific, simple, done for you SOPs. Now, here's the thing to note, and this is an interesting, I think, dichotomy that we think a lot about, certainly as coaches, is, quite frankly, there is a time and a place in your development where the very, very best thing is just done for you. It's like, I get it. Like, you just do this, and you want to be told, just do this thing.
Yep.
And then at a certain point, I think as your business matures, that type of stuff works less and less, because for the most part, your pretty batteries included at this point. The things in a done for you obvious playbook are going to be a little bit more obvious. And I think that is satisfying in a different way for us, because as coaches, at this point, it becomes more about asking more open-ended questions. And we can all be a little bit more creative because you've got the basics in place. Now, everyone starts the Unicorn Society in a different place. We obviously have really built in some criteria, because the floor, candidly, again, with love, and this is not a judgment of anybody, but the floor just can't be too low, just because it's not going to be the right fit. You're not going to have time. There's not enough of these pieces in place. But listen, it's not uncommon when people start, there's some meaningful gaps in some big places where we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We don't want to get creative with it. We just want a simple system you can implement quickly to get that part of the business functioning. And again, once that's in place, certainly for more advanced owners, once we're doing 7 figures, once we've got multiple facilities, once we've got a large team, once we're interested in wealth creation, admittedly, the conversation shifts at that part. But if you are listening to this and you know that there's just a few things where it just hasn't landed yet, and it feels like a lot of work to create a system on your own, well, great news. More and more, we're building out an entire library, with the ambition being, eventually, we want to have a playbook for any single function of the business that you need something to be done that is reflective of the best practices we've seen, again, not only in Mark Fisher Fitness, but across the extended Unicorn Society universe.
Yeah. Yeah, well said, my friend. I think it's a great distinction, right? There's some things that people just say, tell me the steps. I mean, one of our most commonly used playbooks is the raise your rates
Right,
playbook,
right,
right?
right.
Like everyone needs to raise their rates at least once a year. And
Yep,
some of you come into Unicorn Society not having raised your rates in a long time, and we just say, follow these steps. Here are the email templates, here's the
yep,
act, and everyone uses that one, right?
yep.
And as Fisher said, we're committed to, and I think we'll probably be pretty close to this by the end of this year, having literally a first draft for every system you'll need in the business. Like you'll
Right.
be able to take all of our playbooks and use it as your first draft. You'll never have to start with a blank piece of paper for building a system in your business. And that's a thing we're really just kind of committed to. And those are always developing based on feedback and
Yep.
conversations with current members. So that's something I think we're continuing to invest in and I think really proud of. And it's paying off. A lot of folks are getting a lot more done a lot more quickly because they have a really great head start. Yeah. Well, let's wrap it up there. We could keep going and talk about Unicorn Society all day. Clearly, we're passionate about it. Clearly, this is a program I think that offers a ton. I think we're really proud of all the value that we offer in this group. And many of our members have been with us literally since the beginning. So
Right.
clearly, there's people who get value from staying in this program long term. So, as a reminder to you, dear listeners, if this sounds interesting, even at all to you, and you meet some of the criteria we've talked about, go apply. Go to businessofunicorns.com before June 11th, if you're listening to the podcast by then, and get our early bird rate. Save $1,800 on the year if you talk to us and sign up to talk to us before June 11th. And if we're not a fit, we'll talk to you about other ways we might be able to support you,
Totally.
or maybe suggest other things out in the world. You know, we're a place that leads with abundance here. So if we're not the right fit, we might be able to suggest other places or programs that are. Anything you want to say in as parting word, Fisher?
Yeah, I guess I'll just say, I think I always say a version of this, but it bears repeating because it's true, is that I do think part of the coaching relationship is going to be fit,
Mm-hmm.
right? So understand it's no secret that I am friends with most of the people that do things like this, right? They're good pals. And again, we lead with abundance. We're very comfortable with that. It never feels weird. It never feels like competition. And there are a lot of different solutions. And I think all of them have probably
Fun.
different pros and cons. And, we're no different, right? So I think in addition to considering what you want from your business, in addition to the various features and benefits of the various options, I'd invite you to also just consider vibe checks,
Yeah.
consider vibe checks, right? Because and listen, if you're listening to this podcast, there's a chance you feel some affinity to us. We just like with Mark Fisher Fitness, very much know we are not for everyone. There's different ways of doing this kind of work, and we certainly have our own particular style. So although we're not for everyone, we do know that the people we're for, we seem to be damn for. And likely, if you dig on us and the way we approach content and how we show up, my assumption is you will also find yourself in rooms of like-minded individuals that you'll probably have a lot in common with as far as how you are looking to be in the world, grow your business, create more impact, and create real personal freedom with more income and a great life for yourself and your family.
Yeah. Well said, my friend. We'll leave it there. Friends, reach out to us, do those vibe checks, see if we're a good fit. And if you like this podcast, also leave us a review, leave us 5 stars everywhere you listen to your podcast, and email us if you have any other questions about the Unicorn Society or want to tell us what to talk about next in this podcast. Michael at businessunicorns.com, Mark at businessunicorns.com. Thanks for a great chat, Fisher. And y'all, I'll talk to you on the next one. Have a great day.
Bye.